will just turn up with the four most boring decks you can imagine.
Well, those are the classes there. Boarcontrol has Paladin, Priest, Rogue. His Warrior is banned away. Now, this seems a little bit different. And Mysterious has Druid, Priest, and Rogue, and his Warlock is banned away. Now,
I'm going to go.
I'm going to go
with an error.
I think that is definitely an error, and it is a Warlock ban. I'm getting confirmation. It's a Warlock ban for both players. There is no Warrior from Boarcontrol. Whew, a brow, sweat just started dripping from all of our heads.
We got you there, didn't we, guys?
What's happening? Okay, so fairly normal then with the Warlocks being taken away.
Very normal indeed.
I think I was speaking to the admins, and they were saying the decks that people have brought, the classes, it's been fairly similar. I think it's only one player who didn't bring Warlock in the end.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just what Boar has been playing on stream basically recently. He shot up to Legend as the first player to hit Legend on NA, I believe, with Murloc Paladin. Yeah. And then outside of that, you know he's played an unbelievable amount of Rogue over the past couple of months, and he's been playing a lot of Q-Block in the last week or so to start bolstering his ability with that as well. So pretty standard from what we can expect from him.
Yeah, and it's only like, I don't know, maybe 10 days ago, maybe 2 weeks. I know time flies when you're having fun. That Boar was looking at the Paladin's stats on one of the sites saying, I suppose I better play this garbage because it's got really good stats. And so he played them, and then he tuned one of them up, and then he gets rank 1 Legend with it.
He does it. It's crazy how well he manages. The kind of rise of Boarcontrol, actually. He went from just being this good player in the United Kingdom who was doing it as a hobby to suddenly deciding, I'm going to be playing Hearthstone full-time. I'm going to start streaming it. The stream is having success. And it's been fantastic to see him grow as we jump into game number 1. And I guess that helps you grow as a player, really, doesn't it?
Easy to see why, isn't it?
Yeah.
He still looks like he's like under massive stress every time he plays. Like
that's just Boar.
I know it's how he is. Like when we first saw him on stage, it's like, oh my god, this guy's not going to make it through the game. Like he's gonna give up. But it's just how he looks. It turns out he's not nervous at all, or not in particular. I'm used to being a bit nervous at times. It's just how he is.
Well, I mean, you were talking about poker faces in a previous game, the trapped wind face, as it were. But I mean, I don't know what Boarcontrol is currently experiencing, but for someone who has a start like that, he looks pretty stressed.
He does indeed. You'd expect him, I don't know, to be having a little jig up on the table or something, because this is a jig-worthy hand to be sure.
Just intense concentration. The very Chucky-esque style of concentrating while writing, except Boar can hold a pen.
I wonder if jigging on the table is against the rules.
Very possibly is. That'll explain why he's not doing it.
Wow. I'd better sit back down then.
Well, you've given away your secret of casting, Neil. You
just jig on the table,
doing Irish river
talking.
Oh, you'd knock my water over, Neil. All
That's
light feet.
That's why it's called river dancing.
Get your clogs off, Neil. So I mean,
joke about Neil and clogs because
wow.
Is that a universal expression or just an English one?
It's a UK broadcast. If no one else gets it, watch your own.
Right.
UK and Ireland broadcast. I'll have
yeah, that was coming. So it gets really difficult to cast Rogue when one player has Killers and the other has Patches.
Well, it's very much worth considering how he plays this out, because I mean, obviously in this position, Coin is pretty good. You've got an SI7 agent in hand, and even on turn 2, going deckhand Coin Dagger would be very nice. But I like this a lot from Boar, because on his next turn, maybe he's not perfectly mana efficient with deckhand, but he can throw it out. And even if he just goes for Dagger, that's why Tempo Rogue is so good, because you have the ability to just Dagger on turn 2, and it's a great play.
I know why Boarcontrol is one of the best players in the UK. Right. He just squelched Mysterious after the well played.
Yep.
Insta-squelch.
And that is the only 2 words that Mysterious has said for the last 2 days.
Well played.
Yeah, well played.
So Mysterious opting to go for the Shiv over the Dagger, which I find very interesting indeed, because he could have still gone... he doesn't need to find something to do on the following turn, because Firefly Hero Power is respectable, and he's got a decent chance over the next couple of draws of finding something good to do anyway. So I think I would have preferred the Dagger there. Yeah,
the problem now is Mysterious can't mess around. If this game goes, every turn it goes, Boar gets 2 2s worth of stats more than Mysterious. So Mysterious has got to try and put the tempo on the pressure on as quickly as possible, because Boar can afford to just take his time now.
Yeah, which Shiv does not afford you. It's not.
I guess
it is a lower tempo play than the Dagger.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Mysterious needed.
Yeah, me sunshine.
Sorry, Dad.
I don't know what you want me to say. I'm strictly right.
Damn it.
It has been a struggle this whole season, Neil, with Darok being right about things.
We'll beat that out of him when he's cast a bit more. He'll soon learn to miss lethals and forget how to count to 8. It'll be good.
I mean, I was going to say he can pull patches out of his deck there, so thanks, Mysterious, for playing that turn nice and speedily.
Yeah, we were talking over that.
But it's still a respectable play, just something to throw out onto the board. And, I mean, it would just be nicer if he had the dagger here, because then he can start to trade off things that come onto the board. Like, I don't know, there's not really anything he could kill off, because everything will be buffed by Captain or by Keleseth anyway. It's an interesting point, though. You guys...
We just trying
We're just having glances.
We just look at each other. Stop. Who's this kid anyway?
We're just waiting for you to make a mistake so we can pick you up on it, basically. Yeah. So keep talking.
Yeah, carry on, because you haven't made one yet.
All right, so he can play Goldshire for... Oh, damn it. I
mean, that's actually quite good tech, right? It's got taunt. It's like Argent Protector.
Except awful.
Except really bad.
Except really, really bad.
So back in the real world, which we're not living in because Boarcontrol's minions are so huge, Boar's just got to find the efficient way to still play rogue things, but just not hurry about it.
There's the thing, he's not taken advantage of any of his buffed up minions yet, but he hasn't had to. There's not been any pressure from Mysterious to answer back the early start from Boarcontrol. A Keleseth from Mysterious would have been nice, maybe turn 3 or 4 if he had drawn into it, because he could have Shadow Stepped to himself, but he's so far behind at this point, just knowing that everything that Boar draws is going to be of high value.
Yeah, I mean, if you hadn't seen the numbers on the bottom of the cards, like if you just joined in now and looked at this, you'd think, oh, Mysterious is in a good spot. Yeah. So he has actually got the equipment to at least try and put some pressure on.
Most certainly. And in these instances, it very often comes down to one player trying to, or the player who doesn't get Keleseth going for the aggressive line of play, trying to end the game with Leroy's Shadow Step, which very often does come into play. Because obviously in this instance, Boarcontrol's got a way worse hand if they weren't buffed. As you said, very low on cards, and they're not particularly strong in their own right.
Yeah, Keleseth Shadow Step's a big card investment. Keleseth itself isn't really much of a card as a 2/2.
Oh, it's awful, yeah.
Shadow Step does nothing. Like, it's a 0 mana throw it away card. So you're only living off the amazing buffs that you get granted from that Keleseth.
And that's the thing, is that patches pulled from your deck always allows you to catch up on board. Like, it has to be the most ridiculous scenario where playing a 2/2 on 2, which isn't that bad, means you're so far behind that a 2/2 or a 3/3 from your deck charging won't pull you back.
Yeah, even drawing the patches like it's happened here isn't actually that horrendous.
Yeah, it's not. It is horrendous.
Did he almost say it? You want someone to say it.
Almost said it was good to draw patches there. So almost.
I nearly said it on turn 2 because I was like, well, it fills the mana curve.
There you go.
Play the 1/1 and the 2/1, but the 1/1's buffed up to a 3/3.
But the thing is, even then, you could just float a mana, pull the patches from your deck anyway, and have a different card.
I mean, a 1 mana 3/3 is strictly good, right?
A 1 mana 3, yeah, it's
with
strictly good, but it's knowing the fact that it could come from your deck.
Yeah, the cannon just makes everything a little bit better, doesn't it?
It's a little bit better. Love the cannon. And Boar showing here again, as Leroy was pointing out in the previous series, that he's a player who wants to milk all the value he can from patches. So doesn't want to throw it down here just to die, because that's just not what you want to do as the rogue. You want to be making sure you're getting nice value trades or pushing a ridiculous amount of damage to close out the game. Because if you're allowing your opponent to get good backstabs and Vile Spines, then you start falling behind. And that's what we saw from Cold Hands against Big Ben. He allowed his opponent to get value out of backstab, and that's what lost him the game.
Yeah, he ran half of his deck into a 1/5, and then the rest of his deck got blown up by Vile Spine and backstab, and that was the end of that.
Yeah.
But that's not how this one's going out. Board being very careful to not let that happen. And all he's got to do is exert enough pressure, just tiny amounts of pressure.
And from this play from Boarcontrol, we can tell he thinks his opponent has cards like Backstab and Vile Spine, because he's holding them back. A lot of cards that have been there right from the start of the game in Shadow Step and the Bone Mare, and Leroy was picked up very early on, if not off the mulligan, I don't quite remember, which means Boarcontrol does not want to throw out his minions just to die. He wants to make sure he's using them like this to remove his opponent's minions, push a respectable board, and try and have something to stick around for Bone Mare.
Yeah, the Bone Mare discussion on both sides is just how do I have something around for Bone Mare without overcommitting and getting it all killed. And on the other side, you've got to kill your opponent's stuff to make sure they don't get their Bone Mare. And the whole discussion is about Bone Mare, really.
Exactly.
This is why Can was nice, though, right? Can Bloodhoof was used in the majority of decks just because it was something that stuck on 6, but it's been removed. It's not really favourable anymore. No one really wants to play it. Instead, you just hope that you're controlling the board and you hope that you have a minion to play Bone Marrow on.
Exactly. You needed to make room for Corridor Creeper and Elven Minstrel, and Cairn was pretty low down on the list, I think, because the thing is, if you're playing a Corridor Creeper early on, you're going to be ahead on board anyway, so there's not really any point in playing a Cairn, which is a very slow and not incredibly aggressive minion.
Yeah, I feel that Shaku is underrated still, though.
Yeah.
With the stealth, like it's good on 3, but it's also good on 6 because
Absolutely.
of the stealth.
Yep.
But again, you've got 4 cards you're trying to make space for that are really important, and you're cutting one-offs. Like
you kind of just want stuff that wants to die though because of Corridor Creeper. Like you don't want to play a Shaku, which you kind of want to wally about with trading stuff for a bit. I don't know.
Wally about. Yes.
It's a PG scheme, all right. I had 0.5 seconds to come about with an acceptable word. Okay,
yeah, when you do this for a job, you'll start thinking of words. It hasn't worked for me yet.
I mean, to be fair, you didn't swear, so I'm happy.
Exactly.
That's a good thing. Assassinate being picked up from Swashbuckler actually helps out quite well. Fits in with the mana curve. Does allow him to just kill off the Varspine if he wants, and then it keeps some of his minions alive for one of these Bone Mares.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bit unfortunate for Valspine that it died to the card that it just completely destroys in terms of power. It just does the same thing but better. And it died to it. Isn't that ironic?
The student has become the master.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
One might say
like a Jedi. And I won't... Oh, spoilers. No, won't do it. Not going into it.
I think chat's got us covered. I wouldn't worry. Yeah, and this is the point where Boarcontrol pulls ahead because he did perfectly load up the board on his turn 5. And what that allowed him to do is when his opponent loads up on their turn 6, he can clear stuff off. And then it comes back to his turn 7 and he can play out the Bone Mares. I think he started loading up the board on the exact right turn is basically the thing to take away from this, which is what earlier in the series, or earlier in the day, Cold Hands might have done incorrectly.
Yeah, I don't think it's any surprise. Well, that was the longest turn Boar had all game. He took all that turn planning exactly what to do, thinking this far ahead. Obviously, you can't plan every single card, but you can play around a lot of stuff. Yeah. If you watch his streams, sometimes he's in lethal positions on ladder, where he's just going to win next turn, and he'll play around every card in Hearthstone just in case, because he can afford to. And he'll say it out loud. He'll say, well, the only card that could possibly beat me here is XYZ, therefore I'm going to not do this just in case. And you're like, oh, I thought you just hit him in the face.
But then at the same time, in the previous series where Ben had the opportunity to go coin and win, which did die to Leroy and Shadowstep, Boar was saying that was the play. It was just better to go for that because maybe you die to that exact scenario of cards, but you win every time if they don't have that.
Yeah, and you're going to lose to that anyway, so you get on with it and you bring it out. His attention to detail is exceptional, Boars. We've been pretty kind to him in this stream so far. But
he deserves it, though. He's putting in the effort.
He was upset the last match was 3-0 because he wanted to see all the decks.
Yes. I think it's one of the main problems with Hearthstone players in general is that they focus more when they're in a losing situation and they think, how do I not lose?
Yeah.
You sometimes just need to think, how am I going to actually win this game? What is my most optimal play to make sure that I can win this game in the early stages? Something that maybe in the previous series, Dan, if he had thought about, he might have been able to win one of his games that he lost if he had played, for example, South Sea Deckhand, if he had kept that back. With the Bone Mare later on.
And so here for Boarcontrol, obviously still in the driving seat with the double Keleseth buff on all his minions still, and another Bone Mare that has the possibility to come down here right now. But if Mysterious was to wrestle this back, he's got perhaps the makings of the cards that could accomplish that, because Valspine obviously is a huge tempo swing, Creeper for 0 is another big tempo swing, and maybe even just using Leroy for removal could start to wrestle this back.
Yeah.
Maybe?
What we've started to see over the last few turns is the effect of the Keleseth really taking effect. Like this 7-7 Bone Mare up against a 5-5 can just afford to ignore it and force Mysterious to start going 1 for 2 on all of his cards now as well.
Yep. So Boarcontrol taking the moment to think about if it's worth trading at all, which I like, because Bone Mare in this instance, to be fair, it's not that devastating because he's still far ahead on board and he can still play his Bone Mare in that scenario. But I do like trading off here because that's just such a juicy trade.
And that's the thing. That is the effect of these turn after turn of extra-sized minions. And Mysterious hasn't managed to generate the tempo. He's managed to end up with an expensive hand, which has been a bit unfortunate for him. His real chance, I mean, he's not completely dead yet, but his real chance was to generate a really good wide board.
And that does not quite afford lethal.
Yeah, he's got the damage there, but he can't actually assign it the right packets.
Yeah, I was looking, because if Mysterious decided to go for Valspine, which would have been tempting, that would have locked out the game. But even so, I think this is leading very likely to a victory.
Can't see anything wrong with a 3-4 for 1.
Yeah.
There's plenty of things wrong with it, but for the other reasons. I mean, Mysterious was just hoping that there is no Valspine there, and he'll be happy there isn't, but unfortunately another Bone there being a 7-7 is pretty much going to put the nail in the coffin anyway, and allow Boar to push enough damage, or to trade if he wants, just to set up for next turn.
It might well be that the only card he can lose to here in the history of Hearthstone would be Shadow Step, because he's lost both taunts, basically. There's going to be no other taunt in the deck.
Well, Shadow Step.
On the Bone Mare, I mean.
Or if he goes Shadow Step, Valspine, and then taunts up the Valspine.
So I think he kills the Bone Mare just to get rid of the effect of the... He's got no taunt now, so beat this.
He's got like 1,000,000 damage over lethal anyway, so...
1,000,000 damage. Just imagine if he actually had 1,000,000 damage.
There's been YouTube videos about that, surely.
Oh, yeah.
1,000,000 damage.
There's a point where
Was
it
there an
goes
Axe
into, like,
Flinger one at some point?
overflow, and it goes back down to 0.
Oh, that was Arcane Missiles, like, forever.
Oh, yeah, the tournament took like 3 days.
Yeah, it broke Hearthstone.
Mysterious concedes, and Boarcontrol starts the series, as he has done throughout the entire season as well. He's been very proficient. He's been a very good player throughout Premiership. And actually, he's kind of like furniture nowadays. Not like that we will sit on him, but I mean, like, he's just one of these people that he's always here.
Although, make no mistake, we do sit on him.
He's bedded in, right?
If he's there, if he's comfortable, then why not? But the good thing about this series, in comparison to the previous series, is that we know neither of these players are really going to be affected by being tilted or whatever.
Right.
They are going to be more than happy if they lose a game to say, all right, whatever, I lost that game, let's move on to the next one. And I think that's why we're in store for quite a passionate series here.
Yeah, most certainly. And for Boarcontrol, with what he's got lined up next, in terms of Paladin, he kind of just feels like the premier Paladin player at the moment. It's just kind of unfortunate for his previous teammate Jamboree, because that was kind of his claim to fame for the longest time, was aggressive tempo Paladin decks. But Boar has just been playing the absolute living hell out of Murloc, and to an extent aggro Paladin as well. He knows it inside out. He knows what you can cut, what you have to play, and he knows exactly how to perfectly mulligan to get yourself the most aggressive starts.
So he's good at it then?
He's blooming good at it, one might say.
I'm glad you took from that what I did as well. It is a shame that the likes of Jamboree isn't here, though. I mean, he's another one of those players that could have easily qualified for these finals if things had gone his way. A previous champion, of course, and we are going to, in theory, crown a new champion this season, but Boarcontrol, as a previous champion himself, might be able to regain the title.
So this is the deck he's been playing on ladder, except he has got the Crawler in there, which I believe wasn't in his ladder deck.
Yeah, it was interesting him talking about this particular lineup, or the choice between Juggler and Galactic Crawler, because he was saying every time he plays the Knife Juggler, there's a Pirate on his enemy's board. But then every time he puts Crawler in his deck, there's a bunch of 1-health minions on his opponent's board that he wants to hit with the Knife Juggler.
We're an optimistic bunch, aren't we, Hearthstone players?
Yeah.
I know I am. But Mysterious has got the matchup favour here, I think. You can really get early board very easily, but that helps so much.
Very, very much indeed. That's just, when Boarcontrol's playing this deck, he says if it's not a Murloc or Call to Arms, you don't keep it. Because the thing is, if you have a bunch of Murlocs, yes, they're going to die early on, which makes Corridor Creeper cheaper. But if you've got a bunch of Murlocs, you just want more Murlocs.
A bit of a sleeper, isn't it, that card?
Yeah. I wonder if this joke can go any deeper.
Don't know. How long can it go on?
Wow.
Just switch jokes, switch memes mid-sentence. Yeah. So just challenging what he can here, even though this obviously doesn't immediately look like a great play. It's just going to give him more stuff for the future now.
Yeah. It's really important against the aggro druid to not just pull back ahead around turns 4 or 5. You need to do it on turns 1 or 2, because otherwise they play a big board, they buff it, and you're never, ever going to wrestle it back. So he had to go for it here. The Mark of Yasharaj is scary, but the fact that his Valfin doesn't die immediately is a big boon to his game plan.
This is the reason, though, that the Crypt Lord is the reason why this is such a horrible matchup, because he just sits there in the way, and the Murlocs take so long to chew through that you're taking a beating in the process.
And do you just play a 2-3 Galactic Crawler here to keep something on the board?
It's the eternal question.
Oh, it's not even that good. Like, if it didn't have a perfect trade for Mysterious to take it out, I think you definitely would. But you want to be taking it out with like the Rallying Blade or the remnants of the Valfin Inquisitor here. But the thing is, in terms of value, you're just going to be winning after you play Call to Arms anyway, most likely. So even if he's giving his opponent good value trades, as long as they're staying even on board relatively, I think he could still be happy. So I wouldn't be too surprised if he plays it.
Value of the coin being exposed here. He chose to use that coin to dominate the board on turn 1 because he didn't have the blade at the time. Had he known this hand, he'd have had a decision to make about going a bit slower on the first turn and then exploding on turn 2 and 3.
And also, Boarcontrol is very much going to be keeping in the back of his mind that a buff from Power of the Wild or Mark of the Lotus could bump this up to 4 health. In which case, Galactic Crawler wouldn't be too bad just to take it out and start to wrestle back the board. But he's going to be relying on the Rallying Blade, most likely, to take it out on the following turn.
Yeah, on basic maths levels, the 2 plus the 1 is enough to take down the 3/3 next turn. Just for those who haven't noticed.
That is some quick.
But that it is indeed some very quick maths, mate.
I'm not even gonna bant about that one.
Really?
That was a cheap meme.
A cheap
That
meme?
was a 2017 meme. We need to make 2018 memes.
Really?
Darok.
Man's not cold.
Get out. Get out and go enjoy cold hands. So the taunt's available for Mysterious. He could, of course, play Druid Swarm if you wanted, rather than the Crypt Lord. But I guess getting the Crypt Lord down first, and then next turn you can play several minions seems to be the better option.
It's worthy of consideration, though, because you get more things on the board this way around. So it's definitely an interesting one, whether to give up the value of the Crypt Lord or not.
Yeah, because you don't actually get much more... I mean, you get more benefit if you play the Swarm and the Raven in terms of stats on board right now.
And the game's only going to be 5 or 6 turns long, so the benefit of the buff Crypt Lord was definitely worthy of consideration.
Definitely, but because of Rallying Blade being able to take out the Druid of the Swarm, and just because of all the buffs you're going to get from Crypt Lord on the following turn, definitely prefer this line of play from Mysterious.
Let me think.
Was that a little roll of the R there?
Just a cheeky roll of the R.
Lorinda, have you heard his French laugh as well? Sometimes when Darok gets really excited, he does a little ha ha ha.
I try to ignore the rolling of the R's.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. Probably a good idea.
I decided to, New Year's resolution, like improve my casting, so I went to like a speech therapist. She said, you've got to do something about your R's. I'm like, well, what's wrong with my R's? She goes, well, it's too fat.
Hey.
Classic.
Solid meme.
He gets
I got the bell. We won.
There was a fingerprint on my bell though, so I'm pretty. Was it Falcone touching?
Yeah, a little ding-a-ling.
Yeah. Needs to be careful, that Falcone. Ringing bells. Got my eye.
Might get his bell wrong.
So anyway.
Oh, there's Hearthstone in progress. Wow.
But the funny thing is, this game is being played slower than the previous, even though these are two very aggressive decks.
It's because this is the important time in an aggressive deck. It's turns 1 through 5 that are the most important points, whereas for a slower deck like Raza Priest, the early turns, very often it's just passing or playing whatever cards you have available to you.
Yeah, we made this point earlier, very little damage actually goes to the face early on. The only 2 was a cheeky 2 because Boarcontrol didn't want to give the effective Wind Fury to the Diamol, so he just had nothing else to do than go face. He didn't go face for the 2 damage, just nothing better.
And so now here for Boarcontrol, Call to Arms is obviously a great way to start pulling back this board, but it could be slightly limited in its power because the fact that he's got Galactic Crawlers in there does make me think he very possibly has taken out the Knife Jugglers, because that does seem to be, at least from what he was saying the other day, the flex spot.
And you kind of want to kill this Crypt Lord as well.
Yeah.
You're presented with an opportunity to do so. And I believe there's nothing from Call to Arms that could help you kill it either.
Direwolf isn't really played in Murloc Paladin. It's only really Knife Juggler, I think.
On the back of it all, he's going into the Living Mana turn as well, which is terrifying right now.
Great point as well.
Yeah, I like this.
I agree. Call to Arms is going to be good whenever you play it, basically. And it's not even particularly strong here because most of the things you pull out are probably going to die to the 2 high health minions presented to you.
And Mysterious has got a tough turn for the first time. It's not going to be difficult to work out what to do. I mean, it sort of seems to play itself in terms of the mana, in terms of you've got 2 choices.
Yeah.
Play the small stuff, play the big stuff, but it's actually a really clunky turn. It's not where he wants to be right now.
Yeah, I was very much looking at the small stuff because it's obviously got the double benefit of killing off the Divine Shield with hero power and also setting up for a much stronger Savage Roar on the following turn, which if you can't get something to stick on the following turn, Savage Roar could be very weak indeed.
And this is now potential punish for not going wide, I want to call it, like the Call to Arms possibility.
It's definitely scary.
Although it's not even needed necessarily. Also, captain is also a decent option.
Yeah, actually, the more I look at it, the more I do actually kind of like the Raven and Galactic Crawler play, because this 5-5 against, if Call to Arms comes down or a bunch of small Murlocs come down, against both, you just want to have stuff to kill that off. But maybe he's thinking Call to Arms definitely would have come down last turn if he had it anyway.
Well, maybe he just wants to save this Galactic Crawler for value. If he's expecting a Salty captain at some point.
I think that's a very, very safe assumption, but maybe then that's just too greedy.
I think he can afford to be greedy with the hand he's got. It's definitely too greedy normally, but I think there's maybe a special case where he can actually afford to be a little bit greedy. He may be looking at just captain and hero power as well to get that long-term value out of his hero power.
And this is the position where Savage Roar very quickly does become a dead card.
And that's where he needed to play this last turn as well.
Absolutely. It would have been miles better to have played last turn than the Cobalt Scalebane. It's still doing a decent job of trading against most of what's come down here, but Galactic Crawler showing why it's actually not that much worse than Knife Juggler, even when you pull it from the Call to Arms, because a 2-3 is just grossly powerful off that card.
Living Mana didn't even look that good at first glance when it was released. Seems quite good now.
It's one of those cards that we hadn't seen anything like before, so you don't actually think you're just playing a 5-mana 10-10. You think of all the other nonsense that comes with it about you not being able to gain the mana instantly. But when you actually think about the fact you're playing here a 5-mana 12-12, it becomes a little bit more easy to judge the card.
Nicely corrected there.
But
you started at 10-10 and you buffed it as you went.
I'm wondering how much Boarcontrol actually wants to kill off from this board as well, because you are in danger of allowing your opponent to play things like Power of the World if you do start clearing things off. You could just ignore all of these little treants if you wanted to. I don't like it.
It's a dangerous path to go down. Against Aggro Druid, that's just the deck above all other aggro decks that you just clear off everything. It's like Shaman and Aggro Druid. You just never really went face, because if you kill off everything they've got, you win always anyway, because their only burst damage comes through boards.
It is interesting now, though, because there's no Innovate anymore. In the previous iterations, there'd be an Innovate in there, you'd be scared they'd go Innovate Savage or kill you, but now that's not an option. Boar is just going to say, you've got to trade.
You know,
I kill you before you kill me.
Sometimes I get in the head of these players, you know, and I just feel like I get things spot on.
Yeah?
Once,
you thought he was going to
once in a blue moon. Well, that's exactly what I just said.
Yeah.
And I'll only bring it up because I am wrong 99% of the
So
time.
the only thing he's afraid of really here is Mark of the Lotus. But I guess what is worth thinking about is, would he have played Mark of the Lotus on any of the previous turns? And the answer is probably yes.
Well, at least that's the conclusion he came to anyway.
Yeah, that's very true. Whether or not he would have done is definitely worth looking back. Because if he picks it up off the top, you can't really be affording to play around top decked cards when you're in a relatively even spot like this one.
What to do?
Benefit is Mysterious can't even play that Galactic Crawler either.
Yeah.
And now he's just going to be forced to trade.
Yeah.
It's true. Actually, limiting your opponent's mana is so good. It's so
because
good.
the Innovate thing, the instinct is to trade, because if people used to Innovate Savage or you died, but now there is no Innovate. That instinct
Very good point.
is just a bad instinct these days.
Yeah. I think you were right on the money, Daniel Gaskin.
I mean, I did say I didn't like it at the same time.
You did say that.
I said he could do it, but
I hadn't agreed with anybody. I was still on the fence, which means I was right. Because I would have got it right.
Ooh. I mean, there are only 2 Murlocs on the board. Would be 3 in after the hero.
Can it make?
He doesn't need that much. He can trade off the majority of the board here anyway.
And might as well go for it and see what you're offered, I guess. But he's trying to work out whether to attack face first or whatever first, in case he wants to get stealth for some unknown reason, which you don't.
Yeah.
So that's the only real reason to think for so long.
But this is a much better position than previous, because he can now trade into things and still have a board on board. A board on board? Minions on board.
That is a grim
Taunt,
set.
yeah.
Taunt, because it actually does something.
It does something, yeah. It allows you to go face. But all of a sudden, Savage Roar is actually live. And Mysterious only traded in a couple of the treants there, which did allow him to get up to Savage Roar.
What's been lost in the shuffle in all this? Mysterious was the runner-up last time around. He actually took Green Sheep to a second game in the final, second match in the final. We're sort of talking about Boarcontrol, the grand champion of all of, Albion. But actually, Mysterious was the one who was closest to winning it last time around.
Definitely. I mean, he's definitely got what it takes. It's been, I would say, solid play throughout from him. Obviously, the turn with Scalebane versus the smaller cards, it would have worked out badly for him no matter what if his opponent plays Call to Arms.
This has been impressive, though, from Boar. He's managed to contain a decent draw from Druid, not a great draw, but a decent one, plus a living mana, and still just maintain dominance all the way through.
And he's had a Galactic Crawler throughout the entire game. Just in case that pirate.
Right, he hasn't had to drop that. He had turns where he could have just put it down as a body.
Yeah.
But Daniel Gaskin not getting into the head of the players on that occasion.
Well, I mean, it's one of those situations where everyone's going to be saying that could be a knife juggler, right? And is that knife juggler going to be able to do much in this matchup? But you've got to think about the grand scheme of things. You've got to think about his next games and the games later in the tournament where this Galactic Crawler could be impactful.
Yeah, I mean, it's much more a tech against Rogue than anything else, because against Rogue, the knife juggler probably isn't going to be that useful, whereas against Paladin
we should keep an eye on this,
and
by the way.
Druid, against Paladin and Druid, the Galactic Crawler is probably going to end up being worse.
We were talking as if this was done, but it's not done at all. It's Mysterious last couple of turns that really turned it back around.
Yeah, he has actually.
Well, I mean, the Savage Roar that's been in hand has always been a possibility, but just to have burst damage lethal.
Boar's health has gone really low, and
I think
he's
that's
run out of stuff on board, thanks to the Galactic Crawler from the other side.
Patches has been pulled from his deck. I think that's it.
Patches has been eaten.
Yeah.
Let me think.
Just, much to the rejoicing of people across the planet.
I mean, this is the risk that Boarcontrol took by killing off his by not killing off his opponent's treants, because it had the double benefit of getting in some face damage and basically denying him a turn on the following turn, having only 1 mana. But it took a lot. Meant he took a lot of face damage, which meant he's vulnerable to Savage Roar. Yeah, it takes the value trade, but that's not going to make any difference.
No, plenty of damage available because of Savage Roar. Mysterious is going to tie up this series 1-1 then. It was a well-played game by Boarcontrol.
Yeah, I agree.
Regardless.
Yeah, we went too early on that one to change our minds now, I'm afraid, kids.
Yeah. No, I think he did.
I thought it was a really well-played game. He managed to
you bring that
get
aggro
the
through.
advantage against the living mana with the Paladin, which is really hard to do. It looked like he'd go to take it down, but Mysterious did have enough left just to go wide and one last push.
You bring aggro Druid to have a really good shot against this Paladin, because you're just going to get on board quicker, because the Murloc Paladin, to actually win early game board control fights, has to get the perfect Murloc, or not the perfect Murloc curve, but a strong Murloc curve, which just wasn't really available because Grimscale Chum is just not really the matchup, the card you want in that matchup. Yeah,
we said at the start of the day that the person who brings aggro Druid might be the one who's sort of the bravest to take on the Murlocs. I think we've seen at least 3 so
it's
far,
been a whole bunch
even more.
Wouldn't be surprised if it's a 50-50 kind of split. Druid, aggro Druid. It seems to happen quite a lot of these tournaments. You get your players who prefer your control and your players who prefer your aggro. And as I mentioned before we even started this series, Mysterious has always been in favor of the kind of aggressive Druid. And he is piloting it well, manages to get a victory. And we go into game number 3. Priest and Paladin left for Boarcontrol. Rogue and Priest left for Mysterious.
Wow.
Yeah,
we've already done this one.
Yeah, I think I'd still probably give the slight favour to Mysterious.
Yeah,
it looks to me like Boarcontrol has done a great job of making his Murloc Paladin as good as it can be against Rogue. The Galactic Crawlers will help greatly. And if anyone's going to take down this matchup, it's Boarcontrol, because he's been playing this deck a ridiculous amount over the last month or 2, and there's been a lot of Rogue on ladder.
Ooh, Revenge Keleseth.
It's not quite the Keleseth, Shadow Step Keleseth yet.
Yeah, but look at the rest of the hand as well.
Good addendum. Yeah, I mean, it's not a ridiculous hand for Mysterious. Wow, okay. Getting rid of the Creeper, I can definitely see the reasoning for, because you want to get a good card to go in combination with Keleseth, and to be honest, not much actually dies against the Priest, but the Minstrel is interesting.
Boar told us his strategy from beginning this, so now going to be all expert. It is think about what always goes wrong when you're the rogue.
Right,
keep those cards. It wasn't particularly revealing, but that's how he was explaining it. It's just like, keep the cards that help you kill your opponent's stuff that annoy you.
Yeah.
And you see that there, keeping the Shadow Word Death, because the mid-range push from the rogue is the thing that often takes you down. So Shadow Word Death, very important to take down those 5/5s.
It's just got so many good targets. You can hit Edwin, as we see there. Wow, what a hand. You can hit the Edwin, you can hit Creepers, you can hit Scalebane, you can even hit Bone Mare if it goes on a little bit later.
So not a good hand at all from Boar. You want to take on Rogue in one of two ways, which is either kill all their stuff or occupy the board and then kill all their stuff with that. But he hasn't really got either option available at the moment, although we know the Priest changes pretty rapidly.
Yeah, that's definitely not what he's looking for at the moment, but with a handful of spells, it's only really one minion he needs to turn this around, be it...
Gaski's just busy being ill.
Can the production get me a bin?
Woof. Okay, so, I mean, it's fair enough. This is fairly instant karma, one might say.
One does say. Yes, one does say. But, I mean, Kazakus being picked up is equally as good for Boarcontrol. It's certainly a good 4-drop as production bring me water, apparently. I mean, I did ask for a bin, but I suppose a water bottle is equally as easy to be sick into.
But this is obviously
looking... before my lovely, juicy, ice-cold water.
You guys shut up and let me talk about Hearthstone.
Well, that's not how the Premiership is working.
That's not what we're here for. Why do you suddenly want to talk about Hearthstone? When did you grow up?
Go on then.
But for Mysterious, it's looking good, but perhaps not as good as it could be. Because in this matchup, I think Boarcontrol was saying earlier, he's never beaten Raza and Anduin on curve as the rogue. Right. It's just not something that you really beat. You have to get the most ridiculous Keleseth into captain start and kill them on turn 5 or something silly like that, which can happen, but is very, very rare. But for the moment, for Boarcontrol, he does need to find those all-important board clears like Dragonfire Potion, Psychic Scream, and Anduin if he does want to have any kind of a shot.
Yeah, and he's nowhere. I mean, I was going to say he's nowhere near any of them. The thing with the Priest deck is it's packed full of these good cards. Yeah, he's going to either draw more cards or they're going to be the cards he wants and get there very, very quickly.
Wow.
You know, this very much could be a grand final that we could have looked at this tournament, and still could be, actually, because of the lower bracket. I mean, obviously you mentioned Mysterious, he came second last time, but both players, not only did they not crank under pressure, but in these long games where you do have to have a little bit more of a thought process, they've been there, they've done that, they're on ladder every season grinding it out. Mysterious is always up there, High Legend as well, so even if one of these players does fall to the lower bracket, I wouldn't be surprised if we see them in the latter stages as well.
Yeah, Mysterious has won twice the one land that Boarcontrol hasn't won in the UK, which is Epic Land. He's won that twice this year. Boar winning the other stuff like Masters and Insomnia and that stuff back when that stuff was a thing.
Yep.
So, you know, Mysterious is winning the stuff that Boarcontrol isn't. Basically, between they've pretty much carved up the UK scene now for the last 2.5 years, something like that.
But for this turn, Boarcontrol's really wondering whether or not it's worth going for the Shadow Word Death to take out that Edwin, because it is a lot of damage to eat. But I think in the end, he'll probably just end up going for the Kazakus, because you can just choose to eat up the damage, and there's so many good options for things to death over the next few turns, be it Creeper or Scalebane, anything like that, or even just a slightly buffed up minion from the Keleseth.
The problem with eating damage against Rogue as against some of the other classes is it has so much potential burst with that Leroy Shadow Step. So you sort of start the game on a lot of lower effective health total. So his choice there not to eat that damage would be at the back of his mind, I might have to eat something later that I can't help but eat.
And I guess his reasoning was, yes, I could go Kazakus now, Potion on 5, but considering there's a 6/6 Edwin on board, he probably wouldn't have the liberty to play the Potion anyway, because then he'd be eating another 6 damage. So all things considered, because he very likely would have ended up taking 12 damage from that Edwin if he didn't kill it off, I can respect his line of thinking.
4 damage to all minions, not snap picked. I assume he's just making it so it's not obvious. But double Keleseth, he's got to work out how many things it actually kills.
I presume he went for draw cards as well. I didn't actually notice.
I didn't see from the first one.
Yeah, I don't think you can see from the spectator mode which one he actually picked, but
I can't see from this distance.
Probably assume draw cards, but Polymorph is kind of tempting in this situation if you're clearing the board as well to isolate one important minion.
Or 4 important minions.
Yeah, that's the minstrels that Mysterious kept as well from his mulligan.
Yes.
He was very much planning around this scenario of I'm going to be playing this early on to get more value, and he has found a Vast Mind Slayer as well, which can be important.
Yeah, and you know, he kept it in a Keleseth hand, which makes sense because obviously primarily you want to find Shadow Step, but just drawing more of those buff minions means you're getting the value from Keleseth in an accelerated fashion. It's not until you're in the super late stages of the game when they've already played Raza and Anduin and you're losing anyway.
And this is what is giving Boar the headache here. It's the fact that this is going to continue after he plays Anduin. There's going to be a big reload turn. Whenever he does play Anduin, there'll be a big reload turn the turn after. So however you work it is going to be a nightmare for him.
Yeah. He's got a couple of tricks up his sleeve, though, like Blood Mage Downloss into Spirit Lash is always a really, really nice way to both clear off some of these smaller minions and make sure that you're getting yourself up to that all-important high health total that you were saying it's so crucial to have against Rogue. But again, it comes back to Keleseth's Shadow Step. It's just not really going to be clearing all that much off whatsoever.
Or going for the health gain now, it's like you say, this is setting up next turn. And Dragon Fire Potion is so huge when there's a dragon in the opposing hand.
I really like that play from Boarcontrol as well. It seems like every play from Boarcontrol is so calculated. He knows exactly. Right. He thinks like 6 turns ahead. It's unreal how much he thinks in a game of Hearthstone. And I think Boarcontrol is the closest UK player we have to the top professionals in the world.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, George C would take issue with it to some degree, but he doesn't have quite the time that Boarcontrol has to put into the game. There was a time a while ago that Boarcontrol would have admitted that George was better than him. I don't think he would anymore.
I mean, George isn't here. So
George isn't here, so we can say what we like about him, except Twitter will then blow up, so we better not.
I like blowing up Twitter.
He's a scary individual, is George C. But yeah, I think it's since Boar's been able to put the time into all these decks now, he doesn't just master 1 or 2 decks at a time. He is getting very, very good.
And we can see there from Boarcontrol's potion, just a little peek of the text. It is Polymorph that he took for the first option as opposed to drawing cards, which at any point, he could just let it rip as a chance to polymorph the most important minion, or even just a 50-50 hit if he wanted to. But the thing is, the Tar Creeper is only 3 attacks, so it's not that much damage coming in quite yet.
It's just how much does he think he needs to preserve this removal? Like, 5 cards is pretty good in your opposing hand, and they know they're going to be big ones. So how much does he think that Anduin deals with immediately next turn, obviously, when it comes down? How much do you think he needs to defend? Yeah,
so Anduin is very likely going to kill off the majority of what comes down, because obviously basically any minion he plays on that turn will die to it, and that's why he's going for this line of play of killing off the other smaller minions to make sure that Anduin will kill off everything. And I actually really like this play because Anduin should clear off the majority of stuff on this coming turn, and outside of that, he's got the Dragonfire Potion to clear up the next wave of stuff as well. So this pesky board of minions coming in for 6 every turn is actually very much enough to get rid of.
Yeah, and he can deal with either or, so he's in an okay spot. Yep. So Mysterious presented with 2 different problems, but Dragonfire is going to kill them both. I think that, by the way, is the only Kazakus potion that works really awkwardly still.
Yeah.
Yes.
That combination, all the others have now been fixed, so they work the right way around. But that one really annoys me when polymorph a thing.
In a way, it's the right way around, because if you hit the right one, it does clear off everything, which in this instance would have meant Bone Mare can't hit anything. So it could have had a big upside.
I get it.
But you're right, it's clunky.
It's the one that irritates me the most when I get it.
I think it was in December when I was playing a lot of Priest, and I said to you, how does some of these Kazakus potions work? And you said, was it you or Falcon who said, it works the best way that is possible? And then I got into a polymorph situation. I was like, that actually isn't as good as I would have liked it.
That sounds like a classic me and you interaction. Where I just say something that's perfectly reasonable and right, and you say, "Oh, Darren, that's actually incorrect."
Is that an accurate representation of my voice?
Yes.
I mean,
but talking of this, Boar is again in trouble. Mysterious managed to play the double 4 attack minion, the Bane of Priest, going into what Boar was hoping was going to be a nice, easy Anduin.
Yeah, and Mysterious has obviously been playing around Anduin very effectively the last couple of turns, and he's had the liberty to do so. He's been given the cards, despite a double Keleseth buff, to both present a very, very respectable amount of damage, but also play around Anduin, and Boarcontrol is very much feeling the pressure from that.
So you could just go Shadow Reaper Anduin. You can't play Binding Heal, if I'm correct.
Yep.
So that's a shame. If you had something you could target with Binding Heal, then you'd be happy.
Oh no, sorry, you can target.
Yeah. So you'll be happy just getting that extra 5 health, I think.
But the situation you're in, you're not happy about. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You've got to kill something either this turn or next turn. Nothing's getting killed.
So how much health is he at? 8 and 6. I mean, if the Leroy's been buffed, I can't remember if it's even been buffed from the Keleseth. If it is, he's dead, I believe.
So it's not been buffed.
Oh, no, even then, he's 1 off. He'd be 1 off. Yeah.
He's dead to Shadow Step. He's dead to a lot of things here. And
so he's not dead to Leroy at the moment. So that's why I like not going for the Binding Heal, because you're never beating Leroy and Shadow Step anyway in this scenario.
Yeah, Mysterious tiptoeing around all of the AoE and the Anduin and still getting into a good spot. Obviously, the pickup of the Chain Gang is important, very important, but going to put him in a fantastic position when you take down the Priest with Rogue.
That's got to feel good. I mean, if you're ever going to do it, it's going to be through a Keleseth Shadow Step game. But obviously, that didn't even work out for Dan SWF in the previous series, I believe, who couldn't quite get it done.
I can't see how Boar can wriggle out of this particularly well.
I don't think he can either, judging by his body posture.
I mean, it's like that last hour. How can you tell the difference?
He could have just won the lottery and he'd be sitting like that. Right, oh, could have won it last week. Oh.
What numbers do I pick next week?
Yeah.
I just have visions of Boarcontrol winning the lottery and like just ripping up the ticket and being like, bah, could have done it better.
Yeah, I'll do it better next time. I didn't win the jackpot.
That was only RNG. I didn't do it with skill.
It was a lotto dip rather than my own numbers I chose.
You think he'd do a lucky dip? I reckon he'd actually go away and like analyse the previous 37 million years of numbers.
7 has come up 300 times in the past 40 years. Maybe I should choose that number.
But if you pick 7, then there's a problem because everyone else picks 7 as well. So you have to pick the second most popular number.
So Boarcontrol has found a way to stay alive on board, but obviously Mysterious has the Bane of Priest in the late game in Leroy to close this one out. So Boarcontrol's going down 2-1, very possibly ending up in the losers bracket after the first day, which would not be where anyone is expecting to find him. But having Kazakus Priest as one of his remaining decks, he's also got a very good shot at turning this around.
He does, and I don't think he will be too aggrieved with that situation. The fact that he can now just play Priest, play one of the best decks, and just hope to get 2 victories out of it. I mean, it still is bizarre that Priest is left up. I know it makes entire sense, but it is bizarre.
Yeah.
It's just really weird. The whole format is really weird, where the deck that definitely is not the strongest deck and actually loses to the strongest deck is banned for apparently no particular reason. It's only when you actually try to build a lineup yourself you go, oh, most of the decks are aggressive and lose to Warlock.
Yeah, exactly. After you've brought Priest and Warlock, what do you bring to fill out your 4 decks? And the only good ones really are aggro, to be honest.
It will be interesting if someone at the World Championship manages to sort of break this format up where they can ban the Priest and maybe make a deck we haven't seen that actually takes Warlock down as a specific one tournament only hit.
That is the missing link in Conquest at the moment, because with Purple and Firebat in Taiwan, they were so close to being able to hard target the Warlock, because they had Priest, they had an anti-mirror Warlock, and they had the Jade Druid, but it was just that 4th deck. They went with a Tempo Mage, which just could not get the job done against those control Warlocks. So if someone can figure out that 4th all-important deck to counter cube and control Warlocks, whilst also being decent against the rest of the field, they will definitely crack the meta.
And it is also why the meta isn't advancing particularly quickly at the moment. It's not just because we're only a month into the set. It's because anybody who invents anything remotely good is going to get in touch with somebody who's playing at World Championships and say, hey, I've got this great new deck that breaks the meta, play this. So it might not happen, but if there is something that breaks the meta, nobody in their right mind is playing it on ladder for fun right now.
And here Boarcontrol gets a very respectable start to get things going, and no Northshire Cleric to ruin the fun. So do you expect to see Chum into Rockpool?
Which is always a terrifying sight as any deck, but of course the Priest can be quite slow in some situations. Now, Neil, I know you are desperate to see a Priest mirror.
I am.
So you will very heavily be behind Boarcontrol here.
I am, but I mean, if Mysterious wins this, then he will have the most wins in Prem history, so we'll take either. But I would like to see a Priest mirror. I enjoy those Priest mirrors.
I don't. I still want Boarcontrol to bring this up for another game, though, just because I don't want to see him being knocked out of this, knocked out of the winners bracket just in a 3-1 loss. I want it to go to a 5-game series no matter what. And in order to do so, he's got a pretty nice way to get things going. Not vulnerable to Potion of Madness even, which you very often can be with these powerful Murloc starts.
Mysterious does have 2.5 board clears there with the Spirit Lash, the Kazakus, the Pyro. He's going to be able to survive a lot of time. He's going to need some pretty bad draws to get into a bad position in this one.
And I wonder as well if Boarcontrol has actually, or maybe I shouldn't say. I don't know. Well, he was playing it on stream. He was playing on stream the other day, and he'd cut Divine Favors from his deck because he was facing so much aggro, and maybe because he's clearly expecting an aggressive tournament. He will have cut the Divine Favors from his deck as well, which would suck in this particular instance.
On the other side of that, he knows he's leaving Priest up.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point.
So it's one of the 3 decks is definitely going to be Priest, so, unless you're Cold Hands. So, yeah. I guess that he knows that people are watching that stream. I mean, Hello Leroy has lived in that stream for the last 10 days or so, going, hey, I know what you're going to play because I'm watching you do it. So Bourne knows that is a thing to factor in.
Speaking of Cold Hands not bringing Priest, that is the surprise for me. Because, like, I was just expecting him to be the one player who brought something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of an actual Priest, not to see Highlander Priest every time.
Yeah. So he's going to get that banned all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm unsurprised to see as much Kazakus Priest as we have. I know that other forms, like the Combo Priest and the Spiteful Summoner Priest, have been very popular recently on ladder. But to be honest, I just think Kazakus Priest is too powerful. It's even better than some people seem to think it is.
Yeah, like I said earlier, if you bring a different Priest, you ban your own Highlander Priest before you start. So you've got to have a really good reason to bring Combo Priest. Now, Combo Priest is pretty good in the mirror, though, so that is a good reason to at least try it. We thought there'd be 1 or 2, and there haven't been. Yeah. We thought there'd be 1 or 2 aggro druids, and there've been 3. So what do we know?
So Boarcontrol going very, very nice and wide on the board here. It's the turn before Dragonfire Potion. It's the turn, a couple of turns before Psychic Scream. Kazakus hasn't been played, so he's thinking, I'm relatively safe in terms of AoE, so I'm going to load up now and then try and push enough damage to close out the game, because he realizes if he doesn't close out the game soon, things are just going to be slipping away from him.
Yeah, this is the art of playing against Priests, is working out what you can beat, what you can't beat, and just winning the situations you're given.
Yeah.
But this is a situation which is almost unwinnable, I think.
I could have said that.
Why didn't you?
Classic. It's one of those games where you need to know what you can beat, what you can't beat. That's a Dan Gaskin classic, that is. An absolute special.
So how's Mysterious going to feel, Dan, when he wins this game?
Yeah, I agree. When I think...
Will he be playing to win this one? It's all about who wants it the most.
When I think Dan Gaskin, I think absolute special as well.
Do you?
Yes.
Well, that makes me feel very special indeed. Thank you, Darren. I think it's probably time we should talk about the mentality of these players as well.
Who wants it the most?
Yeah.
Oh.
Who does it mean the most to?
I mean, it's tough to say. Boarcontrol wants to get his big tournament win since going full-time in Hearthstone, because he's shown his ladder prowess of late, being the first player to hit NA this month, hit Legend NA this month.
And there's only one player in the tournament who's not on a team, and it's him.
It's true.
Which is insane,
ludicrous.
right?
It's
That is
absurd.
ludicrous.
If you're watching and you happen to be a sponsor, sign him up.
Quickly.
But only if you've got lots of money.
We want the very best for our ball control.
Exactly. We love our boy.
Maybe it's going to end up being like other sports where, like, whoever loses this event comes last. They lose their sponsor and ball control steals it. Ooh, wouldn't that be saucy, eh, for next season?
What if it's Boarcontrol that loses? He's getting sort of loosey right now.
He's got nothing to lose, quite literally. No sponsor. They don't care. Except his mum. She'd be unhappy.
Would she?
I don't know.
Would he be grounded?
Yes. And then he'll just stream more. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean, he's
win-win.
He never leaves the house anyway because he's a Hearthstone streamer. So
You could IRL stream. You can play on your phone when you're on the bus. and
or
stream
IRL
that.
stream Hearthstone.
Wow, we've just broken Twitch.
Wow, how would that work? So you've got to go as both games.
Yeah. But for the moment, Mysterious is doing exactly what you were saying at the start of the game, where he is not only got good reactive cards, but he's also just fighting back on board with his own minions, which is the worst position you can be in against a priest. And it doesn't look like Boarcontrol is going to be able to wrestle it back for the moment.
Yeah, needed some sort of juggler stuff to happen there, but
But we don't even
nothing
think
good
there's
happening.
jugglers, do we?
Yeah, it's looking more and more like it.
And with Spirit Lash, with Dragonfire Potions, with Kazakus all there as potential board clears, I think we're closer and closer to Boarcontrol dropping to the lower bracket, which is going to be the biggest upset of today. We still have 4 games left. There are still 4 more games being played today, but that is already an upset.
It kind of is the biggest upset, but in a way, it's almost not. Mysterious is just is probably the most consistent player in the Prem so far. He hasn't found that victory, but getting to every single final so far, I would argue, is even more impressive than taking the tournament.
yeah, I mean, we're well past the point now where we don't know who he is. The first Premiership was like, who's this guy?
the guy sitting very close to a webcam. I remember throughout the whole season, you could just see his eyebrows, and we were like, God, he is mysterious. It became a bit of a meme, but he is just one of these people that just, he gets the job done. It's amazing to see him tournament after tournament, and Boarcontrol not even going to give the game a chance. He concedes, and Mysterious takes the series 3-1, and he will be moving through to winner's bracket round 2. Unfortunately, though, Boarcontrol drops to the lower.